Welcome to About the Winelands. In this show, we will be chatting to leaders, influencers, wine producers, restaurants, and other role players. Tune in every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for your latest episodes. You will find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to About the Winelands. Today I'm speaking to Fred Hart. Fred Hart is from Uncork SA. Welcome, Fred, to About the Winelands.
Cheers. Well, thanks very much. Great to be here.
No, it's my pleasure. How are you coping with this whole locked in scenario?
Well, it's rather interesting. We've just added a new family member to the house, so we're fairly busy and full at home. Two kids and a newborn, and yeah, and managing thankfully to continue working in new space. So busy. Obviously, very daunting to know that we might be running out of wine. Although I think I
Oh,
might still be safe for a couple of years or so.
oh, that might be. I mean, I just thought we have an impending disaster coming on, but I'm glad to hear that. So, talking about the wine, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and how you became involved with the wine industry.
Cool. Yeah, so and I'm born and bred Durban, which is kind of the antithesis, I suppose, of premium wine and all things fine. Um, Born and bred Durban, can't surf to save my life. I can fall off a surfboard like you can't believe, but certainly not one you can stand on. Um, Born and bred there, and I've came down to the Cape in 2012 from a Cape point of view, but I've always been a really big wine lover. Brought up in a family that loves wine, and like really specifically some big Cabernet and big Bordeaux blends. So as far back as I can remember, it's been a really important part of family and celebration and lifestyle. Um, Strange enough, I can actually still remember the day that my father, for the first time, said to me, "It's my chance to go with the wine steward or the sommelier and go pick a wine from the cellar myself." It's things like that which obviously drew me to this industry. That it forms such an integral part of special moments and family celebrations. And from there on, it's just been a love story, really.
So you've been in the wine industry a lot. I mean, your dad was in the wine industry as well, it sounds like, or in the restaurant
No,
industry.
so my father was actually he's a medical doctor, still is practicing in
Oh,
Durban, just passionately in love with wine. I
okay.
think that he's very much been brought up in that, in the old days it was still very much acceptable to have medical reps drop off a bottle of wine to say thank you for support and service. And so many of these wines actually came from gifts from these amazing people who used to work with my father. Yeah, so we just fell in love with the product, and I think the living nature of it made it just appealing and very romantic for us as a family to enjoy together.
Awesome. So Uncork SA, how did that start?
So a bit of a strange one, really. I mean, I always thought that I'd never be somebody to play around too much on social media, but what I realize is that I really enjoy all of this stuff. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy consuming and appreciating fine wine and learning about it. I think that really is the most important thing. But I found my taste and appetite for all things fine was working faster than my memory. So to be honest, when I opened Uncork SA for the very first time, the intent was to really store and keep a memory bank of all the products that I enjoyed. So it wouldn't be everything I tasted; it would be the things that I thought, one day I'm going to go back and pick this up again. I'm going to stock this in my cellar, and I'm going to, keep track of what I really enjoy. And from there, it kind of just grew fairly organically. To be honest, and very unexpectedly as well.
Well, how long ago did you start?
It was probably three and a half years ago.
Okay.
At that stage, I was working in the wine industry, so I had the pleasure of working with one of the largest liquor suppliers in South Africa for many years. I say many years in context, 8 or 9 years. And it was really that space where I was able to, my passion for wine and spirits was able to develop further, become more than just a sideline interest, but become something that was keenly aware of, and I wanted to further enhance my skills on. So as I kind of began from 2018, probably say 2018, the beginning of 2018, I started it. And within 2 or 3 months, it started clocking up a reasonable following. And I don't think I really kept track of how many people were engaging and how many people were talking or how many people were following. It was never really that exciting for me. but it felt like other people became interested in that, and obviously it's just snowballed, and the amount of time I invested in there just really started picking up as well.
So I'm interested, right? So this is now your full-time profession. It's not just a side hobby.
No, so it is still very much a side hobby. I
Okay.
have left the liquor industry directly. I now work in the data science world, in customer data science.
Oh,
So I've left directly that space. Although what I've realized is there's still a keen interest. It has always really revolved around people. So even what I'm doing now is still the same token. What has happened is since leaving the liquor industry, I've been able to really stretch out my wings a little bit further and uncork, and start digging deeper into the area that I'm passionate about. But that being said, it's still a sideline. What it means, I suppose, for Uncork in general is that it still remains a really 100% authentic recommendation site.
well,
I
well, yeah.
have been really fortunate to have something else that drives my income, which means that I don't, it's never really about charging or making money. It's the purpose of Uncork has never been a financial gain. It's really
Okay.
just about indulging my own curiosity for things that are luxury.
So Uncork itself, I mean, I know you've got quite a big social media following, but is it your blog is basically your real passion, right? Is that what I understand it correctly? Is that, I mean, what other places do you have, where you actually do reviews and stuff like that besides your blog? Or is your blog the main thing?
Yeah, so and really, on Instagram is probably the primary presence holder of Uncork. I
Hmm.
suppose it was really designed that way. I found
Okay.
the visual appeal of Instagram good. It meant that it aligned very much to what I was trying to do with Uncork when it started developing. As I started crafting where I felt that it should go, and actually as I was guided by other people who follow and talk to me about it, there was some visual appeal in what was being presented on Cork, and more importantly, it helped to kind of declutter and kind of remove some stigma and overcomplication in the wine industry. A great visual, a quick description of wine, and a personal view on rating. People seem to respond to very well. So I tried a few different avenues in the beginning. I tried to play a bit more on Facebook for a while, and I toyed around on Twitter. And whilst there's presence on both, what I'm finding is, I don't get to decide myself where Uncork goes. There's a community that choose
Yeah.
where it goes to by how they engage with the content, and the more they like and talk and want to explore different areas, the easier it is for me to understand. And I love the fact that it is very much a community, and I've almost love the idea that social media is not it's not just about sitting behind a screen and being a separate person. There's a very social element attached to it, and people sometimes forget that.
Yeah, social media gets a bad rap because people don't understand it, but it's just a platform for distributing content, whether you're phoning people or doing it on social media or talking to people over a glass of wine. It's exactly the same thing. It's engagement, right? And if you're engaging, your platform works. And like you said, the platform is decided by where people want to engage. And
Yeah, absolutely.
we're finding in our business that, I mean, although I think most of your big wine estates and stuff, their Facebook presence are still bigger than the Instagram presence. That's changing, and worldwide, your social media presence is slowly moving over. Actually, not slowly; it's fast moving away from Facebook to Instagram. And
Yeah.
I think
So
that's the trend.
it was one of the areas that I did consider. I mean, thankfully, having some kind of background in the industry and having a bit more statistical support in what I do now, there's a very clear understanding of what is coming, and I believe that Instagram was a future fit choice. Whilst it didn't start that way, I think hindsight is 2020. I'll pat myself on the back and say it was a well-grounded decision, although it was probably a fluke chance, to be honest. Um, I do find that the platform itself is the right space for me to be playing in, as like I say, specifically around removing some complication. The other areas I maintain. So there is still a Facebook presence, there's still a Twitter presence, and it's there, but it never really is something that would be a core focus for Uncork. Last a couple of months, we've launched a website. The website is purely carrying some of the content from social media, and eventually will engage in a more active blog. Um, and hopefully that will become a way of storing some of the reviews in a way that's easier to search and find and explore, because obviously Instagram doesn't really allow some of that functionality
Yeah, the search
too easily.
functionality is not there, right? But
Yeah.
what I'm interested in is, are you expanding into IGTV, into Instagram TV as a medium, making maybe longer type videos and putting that onto that part of the platform or not?
So I've done one or two. The purpose, I suppose, Uncork has always been a pretty faceless portfolio or profile,
Mhm.
and intentionally so. I suppose people would much rather look at a glass of wine than my mug, which I totally get. Um, it's never really been about me, and I never intended to be. So where there's a really exciting way to express what's going on in the world of wine or with a winemaker, I certainly explore there. What I have done is a few fantastic pour shots. I've got some exceptional, really exquisite decanters, and they do so well in slow mo pours that
I've
once in a
seen
while
some
I
of
do that
those,
to
yeah.
share.
They're
Yeah,
very
and
nice.
those are loads of fun. It's always a bit challenging trying to get somebody to hold the camera steady, and I'm trying to obviously I'm very amateur in the way that it's set up. So I do the best we can, and my kids are starting to get involved and kind of telling me, Dad, don't forget to take a photograph of this drink. You mustn't forget it. So yeah,
Amazing.
it's a bit of a family affair at the moment.
Well, if you can have fun, right, why not? So, what I want to
Absolutely.
know from you is, I mean, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but what's your favorite wine and wine region?
Yeah, this is a really tricky one. I suppose anybody would answer this in the same way. It's like choosing your favorite child, and
Uh,
it's almost impossible to do. But what I can talk about is things that are really impressing me at the moment. And one of which is not so much a fad. It must be about 2.5 years ago. I tasted Eric Umair's wines for the first time. Really fortunate to have met up with her partner and have a conversation, and tasted her 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon. Um,
mhm.
it is still, without a doubt, one of my favorite SA wines that I've put to my lips. Really an impressive wine, and across their entire range, there are a few others that really stick their heads up. From as a varietal point of view, I think Cinsault is really interesting at the moment. Lots of cool developments there, although probably a bit more faddish. I don't know if it's going to be as sustainable as other, but yeah, tricky to pick a region. It really depends on a combination of things. I really am all about relationships and the producer and the story and the way in which they treat wine, which is probably what has really taken me back with Erica's wine. Um, but because it's on my doorstep, Stellenbosch really does have a very close place to my heart. It's the style of wine that I enjoy. It's really focused on big and bold profiles. That and most of the wineries that I tend to stock up on happen to be in this area. And in the short term, I've found a lot of interest coming up in the Elgin region. It's obviously picking up, and always it seems to be on the up and up. Cool wine is just something that I just find the sophistication around it fantastic. And yeah, there are a couple of wineries up there that I'm starting to explore a bit more, get a bit more time with as well.
So the whole tourism area in that area is developing a lot. You know, you have almost like an agri-tourism hub there that's starting to develop with your wine and also other stuff
Yeah,
happening.
I think the diversity that we offer in the Cape is just exceptional. Previously it may have been a really finite approach to a few smaller wine regions you're going to. There's absolutely no doubt, and I'm hearing more and more. And again, not really my view, but people who I interact with really often saying, when they come to the Cape, they don't even visit this side of the mountain. They go up over the hill into the Elgin region, Himmel and Arder, and go and explore there. That is just their thing. The wines that are there are exceptional for them. They have
Mhm.
great relationships with wineries. And I'm finding there's diversity, and then look at that in comparison to Swartland. Head out to Riva Castile and see what's being done out that side. We just have just the most remarkable wineries, and regions to explore, and I don't think anybody has enough time to get to them all. But what a privilege to be able to explore them, even if it's just through a glass,
You know what? Lots of
with Uncork.
people don't understand what we have here in South Africa. I mean, to understand that, you really need to go explore some of the wine regions in the rest of the world, and then you realize that what we have here in terms of the total offering, in terms of how you are greeted on in the whole Winelands, how you are, how it's presented, the tourism and everything that goes with it is really unique in the world.
Yeah, and that's such a big part of Uncork, and I said earlier that the purpose of this has never really been to make money. This is not it's not a personal story to tell. The core behind Uncork is really about telling a story of craftsmanship through the lens of producing great wines and spirits in our country. It's all about talking about people who are doing exceptional things or making exceptional things, and my only hope is that it inspires somebody to get in a plane and fly here, or get in a car and get out and go and see a winery and taste something unique. Just try something different. Obviously, when it's again possible. I hope that in some way, if there's one or two people inspired to do that, it feels like it could be a win for Uncork and hopefully for the wine industry.
Do you ever get the wanderlust to actually also maybe do the opposite? You yourself getting on a plane and flying to other wine regions of the world and writing about them a bit, or is this not really something you're interested in?
Uh, Absolutely, and I've been really fortunate to have sample wines sent from a few other countries. Some really interesting stuff, and some not always so great. Looking just for a favourable review, I'd say. Um, I had the privilege was it last year to travel through to Bordeaux and spend a bit of time over a couple of days exploring. It also is never really enough to explore the entire region. And
Yeah.
coupled with that, I actually spent a week or so in Scotland wandering through some of the whiskey distilleries as well. So yeah, and there's no doubt those are absolutely wonderful trips. I think they tend to be once in a lifetime trips, particularly with family. When we go on holiday, we head east to Indonesia and find ourselves on a beach really quietly sipping back on something a little less sophisticated.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things is, Fred, obviously, Uncork is almost, becoming like a influencer in the wine industry. So I would think that sometimes it's to a winery's advantage if you can write something about them or review them or whatever. So if somebody's listening from a wine estate and they want to get your attention, how did they get you to actually drive a bit further than Stellenbosch, maybe, or maybe go to a place you haven't been to and get your attention to come to, taste the wines and write something about it?
I think the first thing I almost cringe at
You don't have
the
to bribe you,
word
right?
influencer. I know exactly why it exists and and how it's worked. The starting point is I hope that wineries see it as a channel. This is just another space that you can use to market your brand. And please, I have great friends who are involved in social media, and they work this as a career. I hope they see this as a valuable channel that doesn't have cost attached to it in real terms. um, you know, pick up the phone. My number's on most of the social media channels. There's an email address online, drinks@uncork.co.za, being an email address, or through any of DM me on Instagram is probably the easiest way to get it. Really, um, send a message, start a conversation. What I can tell you, what you're not going to get sent back to you is a rate card and a generic response that says how to get. This is supposed to be a way for hopefully allowing me to explore more of the winelands, um, and hopefully for yourself a way of getting your products exposed to more people. There obviously is one or two caveats to it. I don't charge anything for exposure around Cork, and I never intend to do it.
Mm.
Um, what it does mean is that I'm grateful to receive samples. The generosity of the industry is really vast. The samples always come at risk, and I said really clearly, I focus on the good. If I taste something and it's not to my liking, I don't. You'll find very few ratings on the page are in the low 80s and nothing below. And it's purpose driven, that I understand every product's got a profile and every profile has got a product. If it doesn't suit me, it doesn't do anything for a supplier to slate it. I'll talk generously about the things that I really enjoy, and I think people who follow and Cork, who align to my profile, hopefully will pick it up and enjoy it as well. Um, but yeah, and I suppose the quick answer is pick up the phone, start a conversation. I love chatting to people who are, you're just interested in knowing what's going on. Never mind, the exposure you get, great. Um, I don't do contracts. I don't do agreements. I do a phone call, a chat, a conversation, and that's, that is really what it is. It's who I am as a person, and it's how it's translated into Uncork
So
as well.
I
Um,
think, I mean, I've had quite a few people, quite a few big wine estates have conference facilities in that, and what they do, and I think this is where wineries can, and they would go to professional conference organizers, and maybe invite them to come to and visit on a quiet weekend and experience what they can provide, right? And I think this is what I think what I would think that a winery should do is actually invite somebody like you for a lunch or a pairing or something at their own cost, and let you enjoy it, and then write your review from that perspective as a invited customer type of thing.
Yeah. So in many of the cases, that's how it does translate with Uncork. So the ability to get out to a winery, I don't necessarily always plan very well in advance. Well, as you would have you would have seen, being at the mercy of all these children and a really busy work life. I'm sometimes and I'm able to kind of plan weeks or months in advance. But that being said, we've had some really good experiences. I remember in a trip to Franschhoek where we were really blown away, and thankfully as a family, I think this journey is a personal one, but the impact is felt on a family who, I'm conscious of what it does to them if I'm running about tasting wonderful wines all over and they don't get to be a part of it. So I ask for anybody who's interested, be considerate of what the lifestyle it creates on the side, not just of myself, but anybody you're reaching out to. Um, I suppose that is why some others may ask for financial support, because it kind of replicates, it's part and parcel of what they do for a living. Um, the the ask is, reach out, let's chat, and I'm fairly open and honest about what I can and can't do. Where it's possible to involve family, and in some cases there's some wineries that it just is not, and that's also okay. Um, and the last part, the other part, which is really really exciting, is that about 4 months ago we opened up a donation site on PayPal, which is really, it's not so much directed at producers, it's a combination of producers and followers,
Okay.
and it's called Buy and Cork a Drink. It's a really small entity. It's like a kind of a $5. Anybody who's interested, kind of small. And strange enough, that is just ticked over in a very small way. Some of the producers are grateful afterwards for exposure, and drop $15 or a $10 in and say thanks very much. This is for you to go and buy something, which I appreciate. It actually, if nothing else, maintains a bit of interest, and it also gives me an excuse to stock up the cellar with more wine, I suppose.
So talking about that, I'm interested in how this influencer industry develops. When I started hearing about Instagram influencers, in the beginning, I was always thinking of girls in bikinis, selling fashion accessories and makeup, right? But with this type of thing, you can't just rely on images and stuff like that. Surely you have to provide some value. So if you had to give somebody that wanted to become an influencer some advice, what would you say? What does it take to become a successful influencer in the wine industry?
Cool. So, and I think the starting thing is just pick anything that you're passionate about. So, um, be it wine or natural wine or a specific region, or focus on South African wine, focus on a style of wine or what you're trying to track. The starting point is, if you're not passionate about wine, don't start here at all. And it seems maybe like a bit of a negative statement, but it's really difficult to. There are loads of people who come in and try and leave, and often the case is that you have to be so passionate about it that you almost can't stop. So there's maybe the first thing is, if you pick the thing you're passionate about. If that is wine, fantastic. What a pleasure to have a new influencer on board. The second thing is, try to understand what your purpose is. So once you know that wine is definitely your passion, what is the purpose of what you're trying to do? Are you trying to bring new people, young people into drinking wine? Are you trying to demystify some of the complexities that are created around wine, get people to try new or different varietals or strange regions? I think understanding some of this may also just help to make sure that your market is really finite, but also that your content is then aligned to what they're doing as well. And to be honest, it's something that I've learned in the Uncork journey, is that for a long time I wasn't really too sure how some of these spirits and wines all really tied together. So I didn't start with a really big plan, which is probably my last piece of advice. Don't plan to start and then just you kind of plan yourself to death and actually never get your first piece of content going. Just start and let your community evolve where you're going to and how that direction changes. It felt that in the beginning it was kind of anything I could get my hands on to taste, I would taste and talk about, and then it it evolved into, let's start being more finite about things that display craftsmanship. So what is the criteria that I'd use for craftsmanship? Is that it's something that a producer stands wholeheartedly behind, saying, I'm proud of producing this. And to be honest, some products are produced in the way to say, I'm not, this is just I'm producing this in order to scale that I can make something else, and others are, standing so proudly behind their product, and that's obviously what I've started chasing after for Uncork, is really just honing in on the craftsmanship elements of it, and highlighting some of the characters behind the product. So, yeah, and I think if you're passionate about the industry and you understand what kind of role you're trying to fulfill, um, and then you allow your audience to direct you where you're going, as opposed to standing back and trying to pre-plan everything up front. Um, I've learned social media by learning by doing. My personal profile, I think, was created 6 weeks before Uncork. So it I had no expertise in this space at all. I think I fell into interesting space. I learned by doing. I made a heap of mistakes. I still make mistakes. I have friends all over the world who once in a while drop me a note and say, "Don't forget, you spelt this wrong. Go and change your copy." And I just leave it, because that is kind of authentically who I am. There are a few mistakes here, and I'm no
That's a
expert
perfect
in
way to get
wine.
some traffic, right? Make a spelling mistake.
Yeah, what a pleasure. All I need to do is get the numbers wrong, and then I'll be on YouTube and News 24.
There you go.
Um, it's yeah, it's strange enough. It's because I believe that I'm actually just a person who loves wine. I don't have any of the funny acronyms that follow my name. I'm I'm really impressed by people who've dedicated their life to studying in wine. My experience is in the number of bottles I've tasted, the people I've met, and the feeling I have when I consume a product. Um, I have some structure behind how I taste and rate product, but it's certainly I wouldn't put myself up against a Greg Sherwood or these super effective reviewers and say I'm on their level. I certainly am not. But learning by doing. That's really
So
as
I like
how I've
that
learned with
idea of,
Uncork.
just do it, because obviously with wine there's no downside. If you just taste it, there's no downside to this. But the other thing is that, what makes me excited about what you're saying is the whole Winelands and the story of wine and everything. It's a storytelling journey, and it seems to me that there are not enough people telling the story of the Winelands, and a lot of those stories actually go by the wayside. And it's great that somebody is more interested in the people and the story and the experiences rather than all the technicalities, because that's covered so many times. But the actual human
Yeah.
aspect and the stories about the winelands is something that needs to be documented, actually.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that is really what comes through, is that there is everybody says there always must be an agenda behind it. The reality is that the only agenda behind Uncork is to spark interest or curiosity for somebody in the world of the products that I enjoy, of the South African winelands, the tourism industry that surrounds it, spirits, the producers that we have around it. It is so appealing to me that I just want other people to know about it. I feel like I'm walking around tapping people's shoulders saying, "Don't forget to look at how amazing this stuff is. Taste our product, buy our product, put it in your cellar." And I bet all those people are saying, "I wish I'd listened to Uncork. I should have bought all this wine and put it in my cellar," because I'm sure they're going dry.
Exactly. Then now you're coming to the the important thing. So, I mean, the coronavirus has forced basically everyone to rethink their business models, right? So, do you have any changes or new ideas in mind, or maybe even for wine producers? I mean, if not for Uncork itself, what are your thoughts about this, the industry, the marketing, your own business? Just you must have been thinking about all of this while sitting there sipping your. Yeah, at least you have a stash that you can sip, right? So that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt this has shaken the industry completely. I'm of the opinion that in some of the decisions made are going to really have detrimental effects on the businesses, beyond just wineries, right through the value chain, in the hospitality industry, and all. I think what it is going to do is it's going to start propping up a few opportunities for people to really start partnering where there's mutual benefit interests. Maybe just to put that in context, I think that you're going to find more and more wineries and possibly restaurants working together, closer together, where the benefit is not so much about how can you make my business grow, but how can we work together to make sure your winery is profitable, successful, and my restaurant is in the same space.
Mm.
And I really am hoping that that is going to be something that is the fruit that comes out of all the pain that we're going through now. And the other part is I think that we might get a swing in some localization. So
Yeah.
possibly local restaurants supporting local wineries, even more so than what they do at the moment. I think general feeling is that we want to make sure that people in our community are eating and drinking and their kids are going to school. And how better can we do that than actually supporting their own businesses? Um, and maybe the last thing, I think, just innovation. It's for me amazing to watch all of these digital wine tastings, and it's not just here. I mean, winemakers doing tastings across the globe of their product as it's available. Some winemakers are only able to do that because their wines aren't obviously being able to be sold locally. Um, but people are starting to engage more with the stories through social media, and I'm really excited to see one of the changes that the not necessarily the investment in money, but the investment in time that the manufacturers are putting into social media is fantastic. Because this isn't a money area. Spending more money in social media is not the answer. Spending more time is, and I'm glad to see that's where it's going to. More winemakers have been on social media that I've seen in the last 3 weeks than I've probably seen since the start of Uncork. And it's probably a bit uncomfortable at first, but I think that after 3 weeks of doing it, they seem to be really comfortable in front of a camera and understanding which angles work well and which ones don't.
I think it's right, and I think also that I think the next step beyond that is that people will see that people want to consume online content. Like you say, it's not about spending money; it's about creating engaging content in stories. But also, I think another area that's not been tapped yet is actual education. I think people will be hungry to learn more, and it's easy to learn this type of stuff. With I think online courses and that type of stuff in the wine industry is also going to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in general the ability to adopt technology is just it's leapfrogged. Um,
Mm.
there's sometimes at the moment we're just not presented with any alternatives. So what you do with spare time if you're at home and you're not able to work, and you're passionate about this industry, you log onto the internet and you find something to read about, a new article. You go and listen to a winemaker talking, or you go and invest in actual qualifications. I think there
Yeah,
is going to be a birth of a whole new style, and I think it's been there. I think the adoption rate is just going to be significantly greater in the months and the years to come, because I think that the idea of returning to what was normal is far-fetched. I think we're going to return to a very different normal than what we expect.
I agree with you. I think, like you say, it's just the process was there anyway. It's just been accelerated. But I think the other important thing that you mentioned is locality, right? I think because of the whole worldwide tourism industry is going to take a knock. So local tourism is going to be the first to bounce back. So people are going to be forced to provide also, I think, pricing for not for international tourists, but pricing for the local market in terms of your whole tourism
Yeah.
experience is going to be important.
Absolutely, and it's where we talk about these genuine interest partnerships where all people involved have got to win. Some of these venues will not survive without local tourists supporting in the next 12 months, and hopefully we'll start gearing things in all ways. But for a restaurant to do that, for a hospitality establishment to do that, they also need the support of the really right at the supply chain. Who's
Mm.
providing them what product, and what role are they playing to make it more effective as well. So it is this genuine this partnership that needs to be created, and I'm hoping that this is one of the areas that I hope Uncork will benefit, and certainly start focusing on, is the role that we can play in making sure people are aware of where there is where there are companies that are struggling, where there are companies that are succeeding, what kind of partnership opportunities exist, and what role people can play in joining together. um, it's just such an important part, and it's sad for me every time I open up and I see a story of a business closing. It really feels like it's a personal stab, and I'm hoping that in some way we can inspire one more person to walk into that store and talk about it, and kind of elevate the opportunity that people have to keep their businesses open.
I totally agree with you. So your vision for Uncork after all of this and going forward, where do you see yourself going and growing with this?
So strange enough, and I think the Uncork journey is about diversification into different platforms. So I think the ask we are at the moment, we're moving to focus a bit more on a blog, and get the website up and running. I've also started expanding out a little bit outside of Uncork. So I've started a new page called Crafted in Africa. Um, Actually, funny enough, around about the start of lockdown, I've realized that some products don't naturally fit into the Uncork world, which really is tending towards focus on premium wine and spirits sporadically. Crafted in Africa is really honing in specifically on products that are produced locally only. It tends away from sophistication of wine and talks to probably a younger audience, and also refers to quite a big focus on the craft brewing industry, which I think is really in a really tough state, I think, at the moment, not necessarily battling through some scale. Um, I've also worked outside that into another site called Family Friendly, which is talking more to the environment where parents and children are both welcome. In fact, where kids are welcome, but parents can also come. So probably playing around the peripheral of Uncork without losing the really essence of Uncork, which I still need to
So
continue to drive the message, is around this curiosity to just to explore craftsmanship and what we can deliver here.
almost like a type of
I'm hoping
lifestyle
that,
tourism, right?
yeah. So I've done a little bit, and I've tried to work with some local hotels, restaurants, and that is really something that whilst I'd like to do, it's only where it comes across as authentic. The
Mm-hmm.
limitation of always this is I don't get to define where Uncork goes. I talk about the ideas in my mind, but the reason why Craft in Africa has popped up as a sideline is that whilst I've tried to explore a different passion through Uncork. The reality is the community who follow Uncork um, have clearly called that that's not, it doesn't fit into what they want to see, and therefore it helps to branch out elsewhere. And I'm excited about that because because there's no agenda personally. It allows me um, to really explore what people want and deliver that. But yeah, I am kind of hoping that in the really long term, this may be a space for me to fall back on in later on in life and expand more to how I can use this to focus on tourism. At the moment, like anybody who reaches out and asks for advice, which winery should I go and see, which region, I'm coming to South Africa, can you please give me an itinerary of what I need to do? I'm here for 3 weeks. Um, it's a really daunting task, but it's
Mm-hmm.
lovely. And if just to be able to chat to them at this stage, it's purely to help somebody out. Who knows? Maybe in 15 years' time, I'm going to need to rely a bit more on Uncork for different kind of means. At this stage, it's a passion, it's a hobby. I hope to live it out as best as I can, and I hope just to bring more people on board who want to learn more about our product. Um,
Oh, awesome. So
mm.
tell me your wine journey. Let me ask you this. What is the most important thing you learned from your wine journey so far?
um, so you spoke about stories earlier. I'd go one step further. That the the most important aspect um, of any journey that I've been on, both wine and spirits, has been revolved purely around relationships. And I can't express this enough. It may be more what I've learned in the social media world than wine, but it translates really closely into what I've done with Uncork. Um, it is all about relationships. I've seen really big businesses make offers of almost obscene amounts just for exposure. We'll send you this, and we'll send you this is what we pay for it, and you either take it or leave it. And the response is always from us, I leave it. I have no interest whatsoever in doing this. What I've worked with from the start is um, a producer picks up the phone or drops me a DM and says, hey, yeah, have you heard of our product? Are you interested in trying it? We'd love you to come out to the estate if you can. If not, can you give us an address to send through a sample? Um, these And it doesn't end there. If I do taste, I actually want to hear from them. I want to hear what they thought about the wine, what they thought about the vintage. um, and when I say it all revolves around relationship, it's because it is impossible to unlock that story without a true relationship.
True.
The story that you get is a marketing story unless it's told by somebody who's intimately involved with it. And I think there's nothing better for me than hearing Batu talk about Alto, about a specific vintage and how he remembers how hot it was for walking up and down through the vineyards. There's nothing. Yes, you can read about the rainfall in that year, and somebody will tell you statistically whether it was a hotter or a colder year than the other. Um, but walking through the vineyard, talking to him about it, or hearing him talk about it, it just fundamentally changes the experience. And that's when you actually live the story. The story is translated from something written down to something that you feel. Um, and so, actually, it's really advice, I'd say, to people who are toying around with exploring social media as a brand is don't be fooled into the idea of thinking that you just pushing content out and hoping it's going to get consumed like a TV advert. You've got to consider this as a conversation that you are starting with somebody. The simplest one is, somebody walks up to you at the office and says, "Hey, you look really nice today," or "Those are really cool shoes," and then they just turn around and walk away and don't say anything back. For me, social media is sometimes interpreted, particularly in bigger brands, sadly, that's how it's lived out. Put out a wonderful advert of beautiful imagery and the most, a huge expense put into how to make a product presentable. And then I watch people commenting and saying, "Hey, this looks absolutely amazing. Where is the estate?" And months go by and nobody
Then there's
responds
no
to it.
answer.
Like, you've just had all the options. You spend all of this money and effort getting people there that love what you're doing. And then when they talk to you, you turning your back and ignoring them. It feels to me like it's one of those old high school movies, and it's the quarterback turning around and walking away from somebody talking. It just feels that you've missed all, like, what social media, the heart of it really is.
But I think that's a misunderstanding because most marketing people are still trained in traditional marketing methods of traditional radio, TV, and magazine advertising, or the traditional advertising type of thing, where you don't you actually put an ad out there and you hope people will call you. Whereas with social media, as you just said, it's all about engagement with your it's actually
Yeah,
talking to people, and that's what people don't get. They focus on the media part instead of the social part.
absolutely. And the more premium your product, um, the less important I'd say it is to focus on the metric.
Correct.
It's one of the areas that we often see, like, these statistics come through about the engagement percentage rates, and yes, those are really important. I suppose you have to consider them, and they are important to know, particularly if you're spending money in the space. What you're getting back for it. But if you're an ultra premium wine, and I say you're selling a bottle of wine for 600 rand a bottle,
Mm.
you don't need to have 3,000 people seeing your advert and 1,000 responding to it and commenting on your post. What you need somebody who absolutely loves what you're doing, who's engaging with you consistently, and they're willing to put in the money to go and pick up your product and buy it. You need to focus on which one of those engagements out of all of the pools that come in, which are the ones that are really critically important. And the only way to do that is to respond to the conversation. And yeah, I agree with you about the traditional
So
media components. I think so many people are trained on the old school way of marketing, and it's been really successful. And I've got to say, there's some wineries that have taken to the social media piece exceptionally well. In most cases, when the response comes back, it is generally from somebody who is intimately involved with social media from a different aspect and happens to be doing it for the winery as well. Um, or the alternative is that they're so intimately involved with the wine that they can't help themselves but spill the story in their conversation. It just comes, the passion of what they do just literally comes through the words as they write. I love the romantic part.
yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's the difference between having a sales orientation and having and building a long-term viable brand and loving your brand. And ultimately, if you want it to work, I will put money on it that where it works is where the owners of the farm or the owners of the estate are personally involved because they love their brand.
Absolutely. Look,
So,
I think that there've been examples that I've seen of bigger corporate players, and what it always comes down to is an individual who takes personal
yeah,
ownership, whether they happen to be an owner or they happen to be an employee. When there is an individual who loves so much what they do, that they can't help but behave like an owner, and that's really where you have the ultimate win. And to be honest, for a corporate, they get the best benefit of it. Individuals who behave that way because they're behaving as the owner mentality is just so important.
but that works in all aspects of managing a business, not just in the marketing, right?
Absolutely.
So, Fred, the last thing that I'd like to hear from you is you need to give us your very own wine quote or your favorite wine quote.
So my very own one, I'd struggled to create. I mean, there's so many amazing quotes out there, but there's one which comes to mind, which I'd have to steal, and I wish I knew who it was authored by. But it taps on two things which are really important to me. So yeah, it goes like this: right? Wine is a little like love. When the right one comes along, you'll definitely know it.
That is a very good. I actually love that one. That's I haven't heard it before. So that sounds like something that Mark Twain would say. But
Yeah,
it's
it
perfect,
does
right?
sound like it's come straight out of the poet's
Yeah.
mouth, right?
So,
And I'll tell you that this is no truer than the Uncork journey for me. It's been this feeling of falling in love with wine and the industry, one glass at a time, one conversation with a producer at a time. It's this evolution and a continuously growing journey. I feel really privileged to have been a part of what this how this has developed. And yeah, I just hope that there are wineries out there that are benefiting from it. And those that would like to benefit or feel they could benefit, please reach out, have a chat. Let's see where it goes.
now that on that page, how did I get hold of you? Where do people find you?
So, and the easiest, as I said, is probably is directly on Instagram at Uncork_SA. The alternative is to drop me an email at drinks@uncork.co.za, or through any of the social media channels, WhatsApp or email are both available there as well. You'll be surprised that every comment that comes through, so you don't need to send a DM, it helps, but every comment that comes through on Uncork, I follow, read, try to get involved with. And yeah, if you struggle one way or the other, please try a different channel. And at worst, go straight onto the website, www.uncork.co.za, and leave us a comment there, and it drops straight through to my mailbox as well.
Okay, perfect. We will leave all those links, obviously, in the show's description, everything. Fred, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks for spending
Awesome,
the time. I know you are a busy family man, so I appreciate it, and thank you.
Awesome. Well, and thank you very much for what you do for the industry and the people that are involved with it as well. It's a pleasure to be invited, and certainly a privilege to be a part of your journey as well.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting our show. If you would like to get more exposure for your business, please have a look at our sponsorship options. Thanks again for supporting About the Winelands. Please follow us on YouTube and on our social media channels. All details and links are in the description.